This show is brought to you by DF Studios Limited. Whether you're a business owner or entrepreneur, DF Studios will guide and assist you on the best ways to promote your brand digitally, in addition to creating visitor and customer generating content like blogs, social media posts, videos, and even podcasts like this one you're listening to right now. Visit dfstudiosltd.com or hit up info@dfstudiosltd.com for more info. All right, so let's get into some spoiler territory. You've been warned. EU, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers,
Right.
spoilers. Danger, danger. Warning, warning, warning.
Abandon
He has lost his
hope,
face, right?
all ye who enter here.
Yeah, Lamentations of the Women. But,
Yeah,
so yeah, France was kind of mad about this movie. I think so, and I don't understand why.
Listen.
Holy shit!
Listen.
Good. France
Look,
needs to be unhappy more often.
Listen, I sat there in that cinema. I have French ancestry, and listen, I was so disappointed by people.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't catch what you're talking about.
I mean,
right.
Come on, France, really?
Yeah, no,
So,
but
For France
the
being on some
post-credit
bullshit.
sequence now. The post-credit sequence are like, all right, so they're straight up doing this then. All right, Ryan.
Oh
well done.
yeah.
Yeah.
My jaw hit the floor at that post-credit scene. I was like, his name is what?
Yeah, no,
right?
You went there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, all right. Since we going from the end now, might as well go from end to beginning, right? Thank you, Ricardo. So yeah, post credit scene. We see Shuri. And by the way, before we get to that, right? I love it's one of those little subtle bits, nice subtle bit of writing here, where
Mhm.
Shuri, who is she's contemporary, right? She's not really all about traditions and whatnot, right?
No.
So I love the idea that even though she is Black Panther, she doesn't have to do that ceremony where she's by the waterfall and she has to fight someone in combat, in order
Yes.
to really solidify the fact that she is Black Panther. No, she just get M'Baku to take her place. Just like, nah, I know about that shit. I sorry,
Yeah.
So she goes
M'Baku as king of Wakanda is going to be a fun time.
Oh yes.
I hope they
Oh,
continue with that because that could lend itself. And I love the relationship as well between the two of them because remember in the
Yeah.
How they
first
resolve
one,
themselves.
he was
yeah.
like that gal, who just
Yeah,
defies
technology,
everything. And I really hope they draw on that with the
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
do
I
love
was-
that as
Go ahead.
well. That they are drawing. I mean, Letitia did such an amazing job of. It was almost for me. It was almost Henry V, where
Right.
you have
Mm.
the king is dead, and I have to step up. Childhood things have to be left behind.
Right.
And she has to go through all of that in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
But you have that voice in your ear, and he's there, and he's like, listen, I made a promise. I'm going to stand by that promise. I am here to take care of you, but at the same time, I'm not here to treat you like a child anymore.
Right.
That stuff absolutely worked for me on every level.
That I was fascinated by the fact that he said that he had promised her brother. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
the relationship between T'Challa and M'Baku is
Yeah.
very different than we thought. Like,
Right.
or it developed into something very different. That is fascinating. Like that mutual like kind of like a mutual recognition and respect development thing, which I really love, and it makes complete sense. Was M'Baku snapped? I can't remember if M'Baku was part of
No.
the snap or not. Or
I don't think so.
No.
he
No.
I
wasn't
don't think so.
snapped.
I know-
Okoye wasn't snapped.
because I know
Yeah.
Shuri.
I don't think
know,
M'Baku was snapped. No.
I know
he-
Shuri was, so it would make complete
was snapped,
sense
yeah.
that like Shuri was snapped and M'Baku wasn't. I wasn't sure because it would make complete sense.
No,
Then
I
that,
remember.
like,
I remember in the final scene, he was looking on, seeing other people snap. Now in the end.
Yeah, that's what I remember as well. I don't think he was snapped. Yeah.
I
right.
know Okoye stayed and he stayed and
Yes.
Chadwick T'Challa.
And going on the Shuri thing, I know because like I Letitia Wright is interesting because I feel as if there are like Coogler is giving her a lot to do dramatically, and there are a couple scenes, especially more towards the end, like where I feel like once and we'll get more into Angela Bassett in a bit. But after that plot point, there's the whole. I feel like Letitia Wright is left carrying the movie by herself a lot of times, and I think that's one of my weaknesses. I do think the movie struggles a little bit during those scenes, like a little bit, because she's carrying so much of the movie herself, and like
the sad part is that because she's such a small, tiny person, it was hard to sell her being like the boss now. That's a little hard to sell because there's this one moment where she just like kind of just basically put Umbaku in a spot now. Okay. I get you have superpowers and whatever, but still.
And she doesn't quite, as an actress, have that. Like, there are certain actors and actresses who are on the smaller side who can, like, we forget that they're not tall, right?
Right.
But like Letitia Wright doesn't quite have that presence, I think, is what she's missing. I was thinking about this in relation to, since we're talking about Shuri, the scene where we found out how, because when I went into this movie, I was like, I think this is Ryan Coogler's first movie without Michael B. Jordan. And I was like, oh, never mind.
Right.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that.
Well, that sequence specifically, because because Letitia Wright and Michael B. Jordan, I was like, okay, I can kind of, like not kind of, this is what I was missing, but I remember that, like, there are certain, when Coogler and an actor work well together, they work really well. And like, I definitely felt a little bit like Jordan was literally and figuratively kind of walking circles around her in that sequence. And I feel, again, it's mostly the second half of the film. Most of the first half, I think she's fine. I think most of the first half, she's one of the people carrying the movie. But then in the second half, when she's carrying it more by herself, she starts to struggle a little bit for me. Is my general thought. But yeah, I think otherwise pretty good.
Right. So about that post-credit scene, right?
Yes.
So see that in the theaters. I actually watched it in IMAX actually yesterday, time of us recording this, right? And I just love how people like got up the moment Rihanna's "Lift Me Up" came on.
Oh my god!
Yeah. But no, it's like, stick around, motherfucker. Just wait, right?
We've been doing this so long.
Yeah. So mid-credit scene now, right. So basically, Shuri is there in Haiti, right? Because Nakia, we play by Miguel Lupita Nyong'o. She is there, right? So yeah, big reveal is that, Shuri Nakia actually have a son. Well, had a son, with T'Challa, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And the name is Toussaint, right? Or Toussaint, right?
Toussaint, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is when Nakia says, his Wakanda name is T'Challa. And like 2-3 people behind me, 2 women, was like, yeah, blah, yeah, and start clapping. And I was like, all right, I might as well clap too, But yeah, that is actually a big deal. I actually like that though. Actually,
it's a bit of a loophole for Marvel, eh?
Yeah.
Actually, I appreciate Shuri's response to where she kind of smiles, and she's like, yeah, so the
she can see
bloodline's
her
gonna
brother.
continue on. Yeah. So because what the point I get at is that you would think, because it's the MCU, okay, they have to have some big, amazing, post-credit scene and you hear some ominous music and then it cut to black. It's like, no,
actually,
the
because
bloodline's gonna continue on. So
I didn't think they would go big, honestly. Like what I predicted was that they would be more quiet and somber because of the fact that this entire thing is basically a love letter to Chadwick Boseman. So I honestly did not expect anything like I mean, it was a surprise in that they revealed the whole having a son, but I didn't expect them to go too big with the post credit just because of what has come before.
Here's my heights with that. I saw Prince T'Challa, and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, okay, if Chadwick was around, the Black Panther film series would have had that, and Shuri would have been part of the Young Avengers. He's gone. T'Challa's gone. Shuri is now the Black Panther. So now you actually set up by bringing in Toussaint, by bringing in Prince T'Challa. You actually have, in a few years, another member of the Young Avengers, because you have Billy and you have Tommy. Billy and Tommy like about 12, 13. He's 6, 7. And then, of course, all the way up to like Kate Bishop and Kamala, who are like, Kate is in her 20s and Kamala is a teenager. So you're getting that idea now of the Young Avengers really being set up, at least the Marvel Studios version of it.
I gathered that as well myself. And again, this is halfway. It's halfway bad faith takes kind of halfway thing, but like people are like, oh well, it's still taken away from Chadwick, and they shouldn't do this, and this is a thing, and I was like, yeah, what like. I don't really have a problem with this as it is. Like, this is fine. Mostly fine, like in my opinion. But I could see a bad faith argument or two coming about oh, well, this taken away from the memory still, and blah, blah, blah. And like, well, not really. I mean, it's a different character. It's T'Challa 2. It's not the same character. You know,
right.
I get what
and that's why they said his name is T'Challa, son of T'Challa.
Right.
And it's not the same thing. And I get, like, again, I could see bad faith takes or two. But I enjoyed it for what it was and what it was just trying to do and go for.
I was impressed. This is one of the things I was saying earlier. I was impressed they didn't throw in another post-credit scene because, like, I was like, given that the movie is so somber and is such a like intentional tribute to Chadwick all the way up to the opening credits scene, right? Like the Marvel title card that's all like
1 minute of silence.
Yeah, they did that 2 years ago for Black Panther on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm. Like the fact, like it would have been. This is one of the few I will say, because it would have been so awkward if after a movie that was like that or whatever. I don't know. We then get a post credit scene with Lady Vi walking into the briefing room for the Annihilators or whatever this
Thunderbolts.
the Thunderbolts going. All right, everyone, you know what you have to do. It's like little or like Harry Styles shows up in this one. But like, so I did appreciate that there was only the one, and I feel like it's very soft setup, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not as direct and overt as like, you know, what we've kind of been used to with Marvel up until this point, as far as their setup goes in their post credit scene. Like, anyone else, when they watched Doctor Strange 2 and that particular ending, get a little bit of a Super Mario Brothers movie vibe.
Yeah. That was pretty bad, I thought. Yeah.
Like that was like, and then like either good or bad. It just kind of felt like very direct. But it was very glad to not see that kind of thing in this film as well. Like definitely.
Yeah. Well, you know, we might as well just jump to that opening sequence because this is where we see. Well, not just, you know, the funeral procession that we were expecting, you know, through the trailers, but more or less, I don't want to say a hint, but more or less like a showing of, you know, the what potentially led to, you know, the character of T'Challa dying, right, in the first place, right? I like that it actually with, you know, with Shuri in her lab and the DNA stuff. I love that actually incorporates into the herb, right? That you know, Black Panther has to take. I like that they kind of tie it back to that they tie it to genetics. It's not so much about the mysticism about it, even though it's still there, right? So I like that, right? I like that, you know, well, of course, I mean, you're not going to see Chadwick on screen, right? But I like that, it's this sort of illness, and, you know, Shuri's trying to do her damnedest to stop, to save him, and it's like, no, he dies.
Right. No, all right, so this is where the big bad fate part will come in, right? So people, you know, people come in with the bullshit of, well, you know, they're so advanced, and how come they this disclosed illness? And I'm like, yeah, guy, this is no different from it's addressing a real tragedy.
It's like Love and Thunder. Yes. And it's also like Love and Thunder where the character, you know, is human. Cancer is cancer. It's doing what it's doing.
Right.
And, yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's not that thing.
There's some things
but even that, like, even if you're saying is a cancer thing or not, like, okay, so in my head, I had a solution because again. No, I shouldn't really be taking these people seriously because, you know, it's you know, the usual.
Yeah, they'll always have something they'll always have something to complain about.
Right, like, that bullshit. But like,
exactly.
I do in my head, I did have a kind of a counter solution to it, and I felt the answer could have come in Love and Thunder. But in my head, I don't know if this would have been respectful. I don't think it would have been as respectful as what Coogler decided to do ultimately. Which is my attitude was, because of Gordy God Butcher, Bass dies. And Chadwick in some type of, you know, mystical emergency, you have to take her place or something like that. So he's not dead, but he's not amongst the living. But it's like a big thing that has to go above and beyond because
I actually like that.
Black Panther also has a lot of supernatural elements to it and that kind of thing. So it got into that weird stuff about you know, how Shuri is still skeptical of the gods. Like,
right, which was one of the things I found a little weak about her. Like, there were so many points in the movie where I'm like, okay, movie is really leaning on how skeptical she is about all this at this point. I'm like,
did you not see Thor in action?
Right, give us some other
right.
Give us some other personality traits, please.
Right. Again, it's an isolated film, and it don't bother me because it's like this is like no different from when Spider-Man was looking at the World Trade Center breaking down. Right. It's that. It's a real emergency. You don't really address we could have saved people, or we could have stopped the planes, or we would have seen it ahead of time. Like, no, sorry, that's not how these storytelling is work, and you're not supposed to. It's not a real universe. Like, chill out, right? That's why I'm not getting into these arguments. That even though yes, they're technically valid arguments, read the room, please. It's one of those, right? I'm gonna end with that with the bad faith stuff, right? With the actual bad stuff. I do think I was agreeing with you with her characterization. It's not again because they had to do all the reshoots and COVID. And I straight up think that this is a real world thing. I straight up think that COVID was a big factor in Chadwick Boseman's death because he would have been the amount of resources and just the opportunity cost of it. Like the all the health centers or whoever it is would have to maybe he would have to hold back a little bit on some treatment or take a little bit of time and stuff like that now. And then the dominoes start to fall now because of her death and all the trauma and people just trying to process this on set. She didn't really handle it well, so she kind of turtle shell herself emotionally, and then that just tie into the vaccine stuff and that's why on the one end I was totally against on the vaccine stuff, but at the same time it's like but she's going through something, so I didn't really want to go there with that. You could clearly tell it's mostly that, like in that sense. Just you don't want to talk to her, and she's just not in the mood because she was the source of a lot of problems in the movie. In terms of in the production behind the scenes, Letitia Wright injured again on this stunt scene, and how she had to do this, that, and the other. And it's like,
or the whole bit where shooting was just straight up delayed because they had to fly her back to the UK, and they wouldn't, and they weren't letting unvaccinated people back into the US.
Right, exactly, and
which just shut production down completely.
Right.
Someone said, and I do agree with this because I'm not a fan of her because of the anti-vax stuff, but someone did say, and I actually been thinking about this a lot. They were like, "All right, y'all are outraged about Letitia Wright. I get it. Y'all better bring this same energy for Evangeline Lilly and her anti-vax stuff when we get to
yes, please.
Or we're gonna get a little suspicious."
Right. No problem. Yeah. All of that. And no, but that's the thing. Again, because you have all of this real world weight into trying to mix into fantasy story. It does show its problems, and this is something that time will not be forgiven to. Like, you'll have to show context to the film. Like when you're watching it from 10 years from now, and you have a whole bunch of people who have no memory of COVID coming up, or whatever it is. You get my point, right? Time tends to be unforgiving to this kind of stuff, right? And I really was thinking what they could have done otherwise in terms of the decision making or foresight or after fact. And I still, for the most part, given the emergency, Ryan Coogler made a lot of right choices with respect to that. Like, that's how I feel about this whole all these decisions and core conceits now for what it is, right? Because
especially
if it was anybody else, the movie would have been scrapped straight up.
Oh, straight up. Especially since in the wake of his death, in the wake of Boseman's death, there was all this shit swirling and people being like, all right, well, that's sad, but people saying that they should recast the part, people saying that they should recreate him with CGI, and I was...
Which was insane.
What if they fucking did that?
Upset when I saw that. I was like, come on.
Because you know how I felt with that Ghostbusters. And I didn't like you all that much. I did that, and I was like, you're fucking serious with this? You better fucking not. But what it did, all things considered, I thought was ultimately really respectful. That final scene when she had to burn the cloth, the
ceremonial dress, I believe it is.
Such a great scene, though. It's like, wow, that's come together in the end. Really
one of her best.
And speaking of that, I love that, when you're hearing the Rihanna song, when we're hearing the Rihanna song, usually when it comes to MCU film, you're expecting some kind of stylized, credit scene. It's like, it's just a close up of just, the
fire,
the fire, right? And that's it, right? That's it.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, I get why this work, again, I can't be mad at any of this for what it is, but it does have its clumsiness and its problems, and I'm not sure. Here's the problem. As I say, you're saying factuality. But I'm not sure where, much like with the rest of the MCU for Phase 4, COVID is the biggest factor by far. Because remember, I don't know where I heard this from, but I think it's a TikTok thing where this woman just break down how they shoot everything in one sequence, and that's why, and all of that happened during COVID, and that's why everything played out the way it did. And it's like, all right, well, that's just opportunity costs. you couldn't, you're not sure if it's on forced errors or not. No, that kind of stuff, right?
Well, on top of that, you're dealing with that, and there's also all the production stuff that comes from the ongoing CGI crisis.
Right, that as well, right?
Which is a huge problem right now,
right.
especially since like Marvel in particular is the central. Like they're not part of the problem. They are the problem.
Yeah,
like,
they are main probably by far the biggest factors.
Bearing here especially in that final sequence, it was almost jarring because, like I said, it was an issue the first time around.
Yeah,
and I thought they would have given it a bit more focus, knowing that people did talk about it and all sorts of all of that.
Yeah, especially since we now know, because so many artists have spoken up. If we see shots like that, now we know what causes them. It's like, these were rushed. This was a sequence that got retooled late in production.
You start learning. Well, again, don't spend too much time on this, and we could probably just move on. You start learning, like what was planned ahead of time, and you learn a lot of CG stuff just not planned. So that is the distinction between, say, why Thanos looks so good as opposed to She-Hulk, right?
Yes.
Because they planned ahead of time. With Thanos, they had a lot of clear shots. And look, it's Thanos, right? He ain't really doing that much emotions per se, right? It's just him mugging, right?
Though. Look how much work went into Man-Thing, and that is so recent. And look how beautiful that came out.
Right,
exactly. Yeah.
Well, a big factor, it was black and white, to be fair. But
no, but I did check if you look into the background, they did so much practical effects work on that, and then they enhanced them with the CG and the end product. I'm like, so why can't, if you can do this for this small screen, why can't you do this for your big budget movie?
Yeah, well, my theory with Werewolf by Night was that they did so much of the rest of the short practically, and it's such a smaller production that they then the one thing that was mostly CG, or like a lot of CG that they had, they had a lot more space to like
Right.
To make it really good.
Yeah.
Is what I think ends up happening there.
Anything else? All right. So that's, again, as I said, that's my bad with the film. Right. As I say, Okoye. Okoye felt like afterthought. Like, I get what they were trying to go for, but I felt it felt rushed, and it made some sense in the context of the story. Like, okay,
right.
They throw back a set of shit in your face about Wakabi and whatnot. And I get what he was going for with it, but I felt she felt like Wakabi in the first film. Like, again, supposed to be a serious idea and a serious concept of Wakabi's dad, and then it's just a total afterthought. Like, in terms of like, oh well, he just not really that. And I felt with that again, mostly because I was distracted with Michaela Cole as I thought as the upcoming star now. Like, I didn't think they would have made such a big central conceit with
It's funny how you talk about Michaela Cole. I actually felt that way about Lupita Nyong'o, because I felt like what not here. At one point, I was wondering, wait a minute, are they going to surprise us? And is Nakia going to take up the mantle of Black Panther?
I was kind of hoping for that.
Yeah. Right. She's the warrior. She's the one with all this background in spying and all of this skill, and they talk about it. And then I feel too, as you mentioned, CC, the physicality of it. I could believe that she could stand up to M'Baku. Whereas with Shuri, you have to say, well, she's super strong now. I don't even think that when it comes to Nakia. I think Nakia can take out M'Baku without powers. So
and then
partially because Lupita Nyong'o is a physical actress. She's done a lot of physical. She's used to more physical acting, which I feel like those are the kind of actors that Ryan Coogler works well with, like actors who can bring a certain level of like physicality to their performances. Shuri was never that physical a performance, and so suddenly she has to step into one of the lead roles, and there is kind of that missing. Whereas Lupita Nyong'o could have just like nailed it. Like, can you imagine her playing the like final confrontation with Namor? Like,
Well, you see the problem with that? No. Well, before we get to Ricardo's source now, is how Shuri's conflict is how her story arc plays out now. Because I mean we have to mention the death of Ramonda, which actually caught me by surprise, right?
I was same. Oh, absolutely same.
And how it's set up too with Namor's first attack on Wakanda, and him using these really nifty
Water bomb.
these water bombs.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the dreadest water balloons ever, boy.
I
Right?
know, right? Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, Ramonda literally drowned inside of the throne room, dread, and
Yeah.
it's just that
Wow.
scene with Shuri trying to, mother, like that one got to me, boy, you know what I mean?
Well,
And even
it's
like
one of,
the funeral procession, the funeral is something, not the procession, because we did see it, we just saw a funeral. Yeah, mirrors exactly what we saw in the beginning with T'Challa. That really hit me, you know.
well,
Yeah.
I was
But I think
thinking
that's the
about
reason why
yeah.
Shuri, that's why Shuri has to be the new
Well,
one.
and this
She's
is
Black Panther, right?
and this is what I was saying about my second thing, and it ties directly into this because I think Letitia Wright struggles to lead this movie, and that's the movie's one of the movie's weaknesses for me. The other main weakness is that this is a thematically distracted film, not as far as like all the plot points and everything, but as far as like the movie's central theme is pulled in two directions. Because what I think happened was when this was Chadwick and Coogler figuring out this movie, this was going to be about why intersectionality is so important and the conflicts that arise as a result of like white pressure between marginalized groups. Because because like everything fits into place for that theme, right? Like that's all there, and like I feel like Ramonda still would have died, and then that would have left like Chadwick dealing like T'Challa dealing with that loss and that grief, and then like going
the second parents,
and then Shuri, synthesizes the herb, and he goes into the world, and then he meets like Killmonger again, and like. I feel like part of the reason the second half in particular feels a little like Letitia struggles to carry it is because it all feels like it was definitely written with Boseman in mind. But then because Boseman passes away, the story gets retooled and restructured into a story about moving on from grief. And so now the movie is about two things. And I think that at its weakest, the film is being pulled between these two themes: conflict between marginal groups and grief and moving on.
Yeah.
And the movie's weakest scenes are bits where it feels like it's being tugged between those two ideas, or like one idea has kind of been neglected for the sake of the other idea. Like Namor being like, this was a warning, I'll give you a week. Well, it's a week so that we can like have time for like everyone to prepare and everything. Or and to be fair though, this is why I think Ryan Coogler is underrated as like one of the best filmmakers, because there are so many filmmakers who, given the same assignment, would have made a much weaker movie for it.
Yeah.
Oh, much weaker. Because think about how one of the best scenes in the movie, and we all agree with this, is Ramonda's confrontation with Okoye. And her brilliant. Oh my god! Look. We all knew that Angela Bassett is a phenomenal actress. This isn't news. This isn't news, but goddamn, she just occasionally will remind us.
Even in the United States, the United Nations sequence after the intro.
She
knocked it out the park with that one. You're going, Summer. Sorry for cutting.
No, sorry, I was just saying Denai held her own against Angela in that. I mean, I felt that.
Boy, when that tear went down, I was like, I feel that too.
Fear coming from the like Okoye. That
Okoye.
I expected to see. She turned into a child in front of her queen mother, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Like I was. Like that's the kind of like powerhouse directing that I associate with Ryan Coogler at this point, because like you understand that this is the most devastating thing that could happen to Okoye right now, because like how much of her life and her loyalty is the throne, but you completely and so you kind of for a moment go, Ramonda, you're being a bit harsh, and then she delivers that monologue, and like, you know what, I get it, I get where you're coming from. Never mind, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
like exactly. It's devastating, but God, I get it.
So
I just want to make. Well, I'll make my final point after Ricardo, right? So Ricardo, we were holding it back. We're sorry. Ricardo was just gonna say.
It's fine. Right. So the big sticking point and the big change, which was a surprisingly good change in my opinion, was Riri Williams. Now, I was so shocked to see the story so centralized on her because I really thought they were going to remind us that, she look, new Iron Man, she ripping off Iron Man, it's connected to Iron Man. Not really. In fact, why she's in the story have nothing to do with Iron Man. In fact, nothing. In fact,
Which I love.
They steal the main plot point from the movie Real Genius, if you remember that movie, right? With Val Kilmer.
Oh
right?
God.
Yeah. And I thought that was a great call. The whole Iron Man stuff was incidental. It's like, oh yeah, right. In this world, almost everybody and their mother could probably make an Iron Man suit if you have enough time, right? But she working on it because Iron Man is the influential figure of technology in the world. That he died.
Right.
And I see people make it again another bad faith thing. I really hate to address the bad faith nonsense, but like people saying how it looking like a Power Ranger suit and it looking like something on
Bullshit.
Fortnite. Like hello,
I can understand but is it color? Is it color? No, that will throw people off. But
okay.
I mean, that's a real heavy criticism,
I'm really tired of people complaining about stuff being too colorful. This is the same bullshit we dealt with when Boba Fett came out and people were complaining that their bikes were too bright. I was like, oh, shut up. Can I have fun, please?
Yeah, but the thing is, she is 19 years old.
Yes.
So she does have Fortnite.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the thing though is that like, she's first of all she's getting her own show where she could adapt the suit if she wanted to do like a Mach 3 or a Mach 5.
Right. But what it did,
and then,
that I liked, where she went at the end is like she really told her like, look, you can't keep the suit. Sorry. Like in a great like simple. I am the adult in the room now. Sorry, I'm gonna make this call on you. You can't make it. So she have to more or less rebuild the suit from scratch, kind of thing.
So as the comic reader in the group, I have to mention that I absolutely love like how you guys say they did not have to involve Tony Stark, even though he's heavily involved in the Ironheart comic books.
Right. Right.
Having to take back the suit, that actually is part of it because he was very impressed. But she built the suit out of pieces of his armor that she would pick up from fights that wow. Oh, this fell off, I'm gonna take this. Oh, this fell off, I'm gonna take that.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Right? And he's like, you know what? This is eventually gonna get you killed because this stuff is unstable. However, I'm amazed by your genius. Let's see what you can do given the right resources. So I love that, as you say, they give a reason to take it away from her. Right. Let's see what you can build with the right resources.
And then this is my nerd part of it, right? So one thing I don't like about Tony's latest armors is the whole I wasn't a big fan of the Tony nanotech stuff. Mostly because of the lack of moving parts.
Good comic book run, terrible movie interpretation. I love the comic run. Though.
Right. But and what I was thinking that they could address one of the little small problems I had with the new Tony Stark armor is you could have small modularity like nanotech, but it don't have to be so small that it's nanotech that it just feel like another Black Panther outfit. Like that's what it felt like, in my opinion. So what I wanted in my head, and again, math nerd stuff, is like, they could reference Penrose styles or make it like puzzle pieces or something like that, right? Something weird like that, but it's a nerd thing. And I really wanted them to do more of these like little small things addressing like real world maths and real world, physics and chemistry and stuff like that. Now. Like the MCU has halfway done that, but mostly because the Tony Stark character is the best at doing that. And I really wanted to reset that with the Riri Williams character. But for the most part, she served a good purpose. I mean, she was a little bit of effectively a MacGuffin, but it worked for the most part. And again, the logic of it have some wanting, no problem. But again, given the circumstances of two crises, for the film, one with Ricardo and COVID, it was good enough for what it was, and she was pretty good. She had all the comedy lines. Like
again, without being the comic relief character,
right? Exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
And my last point, and then I'll give rating. Like so, I wanted. I really was surprised. Again, I really thought they would have had Aneka be the central figure, like whatever Aneka was up to, what he was doing. And in my head, this is my Monday morning quarterback and nerd moment. I really thought that they were going to gender flip Akibe, right, the villain. And I thought Aneka was going to play that character. Like, that's what they were going to do, but nope. They just did really make a central thing. I'm not sure what the thing is. I don't know if you're gonna get a Black Panther for a hot minute, given at least a movie. Like Black Panther.
Yeah, I don't think
we're gonna get one for a while. But I was ultimately happy with this rating. I will give this an 8.5 out of 10, closer to 9 to be honest.
Same.
All right. I had very similar issues with the first film, right? And I do think Namor, I didn't talk about him too much, but I do think Namor was a little too much in some ways of a repeat of Killmonger in terms of the conceit. Like I get that's the conceit of the story anyway for Shuri. Namon's supposed to be a kind of an asshole kind of figure, and you get what you're going for. But they play with a very similar idea of, the child who's rejected kind of thing. And like, well, we kind of see this already. And it's a very similar idea and story, but put in a better framing and context, to be honest.
I feel like he's not a rejected, because like unlike, I feel like he's less of a rejected child and more of like a righteous protector. Like Killmonger, right. You always got the sense that he was out for he took personal vengeance and had this, and the government allowed him to channel this into righteous fury.
Right.
Whereas I feel like with Namor, he is more of a protector. He is I feel like he's the opposite. Like he has a very strong sense of family and community, but he's now gotten to this point where he's like, I've seen what will happen if I don't protect them, so now I have to. Like there are ways in which they're very similar, and I think that's almost feel like that's done on purpose. I don't know, but like they are similar characters. But I do think that the big difference is, Killmonger is the abandoned child, but Namor is more of like, I will do whatever it takes to protect my family, type thing. Like
yeah. And they make it work. They make it work for what it was.
Yes.
Again, ultimately, good action. I enjoyed it for what it was. I was digging the silly, feathers on the feet. Like I like that. That worked.
They made that work so well.
They make it work.
Yeah.
All that make it work. So for it was. Yeah, right.
Like,
8.5
and they didn't. I was convinced from the trailers they were going to do and then he invented a pair of little metal wings to fly with. Nope, they're organic, actual wings. It's like, oh.
And then the last point, my boy outright said the word mutant.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, good.
Thank you, MCU. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I ultimately 8.5 out of 10. For me, I really liked it. I was so surprised it was as good as it was.
Yes, same.
They made it really, really work for what it was, and yeah, I could see people appreciating it, if not anything. But just in my opinion, that's a really, really touching and excellent sequence for chat.
Yes.
Just as a,
I was gonna say send off.
Homage and reference. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was gonna use the word send off.
Oh, right, good enough, right? Yeah, and I can't be mad at any of this for what it is. It is messy at parts, but it's way better than Thor: Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange, and I enjoyed those movies. But this was like, okay, we now feeling like a workable sense of gravitas. Stop effing around.
Right.
I didn't know if they get you. That's the thing with the movie. They catch you by the end because I wasn't crying at the beginning. That was normal, but that last scene when she's on the birthday thing, boy, I was like, yeah, boy.
Especially since I was thinking about how like the MCU is often criticized for tone, especially lately as people are really starting to dig into over-reliance on lamp shading, too much like looking at the audience and going, we know this is a little ridiculous, but whatever. And like what I've loved about the Black Panther movies is how Ryan Coogler takes it 100% seriously. Like characters still like laugh and have interpersonal relations. It's like the other big comparison is Guardians, because yes, the Guardians also do a fair amount of lampshading, but that's because they're all traumatized and they feel uncomfortable by taking anything too seriously. So it makes sense they would like crack jokes at inappropriate times. Where Black Panther is serious and almost regal in itself because that's the kind of tone that fits it so well. And especially this movie that's such a like moving tribute. Yeah, that last scene in particular where she's burning the funeral clothes has a lot of quiet gravitas and like just quiet melancholy to it, like in a brilliant and beautiful way.
Yeah, so just a couple of quick points.
Rating, it was 8.5 out of 10. That's my rating. Yeah.
Right, that's like the third time you say that rating, right? But I'll just say a couple quick points and then rating, right? So I forgot to mention, the inclusion of Everett K. Ross, right? That's who I see the character.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, I know he's a fan favorite, the colonizer, right? But I just felt like his bits, I didn't expect that they would tie him with Valentina, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's revealed that Valentina was actually
married,
his ex. Like, all right, okay, but like I understand why there, because it's supposed to connect to Falcon, Winter Soldier, okay, all right.
Well, and also Thunderbolts.
It was there.
Thunderbolts,
right?
She did not need to be there at all. She really didn't.
Well,
But
I mean, she was a good framing though of a bad Americano. Like that's what she was there.
Well, especially since the movie. Especially since the movie's not going to have more teeth than that. This isn't Suicide Squad where they can straight up like make the bad guy the U.S. government. It's still Marvel, and Marvel's always going to play those issues a lot softer. Yeah. But like, even with that being said, Lady Valentine gets pretty damn close sometimes.
Yeah, for real.
No, but like the thing for me though is like seeing her at the end of Black Widow and seeing her like how she operated in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was almost as if they turned the heat down on her a little bit, or maybe she came be like, that must have been one of the studio notes. Hey, we are bringing in this. We need to bring in more of Valentina, because like Valentina, when she walked into the courtroom in episode 5 of Falcon, there's this kind of, this is the female Nick Fury kind of, she has a vibe. When I saw her in this, I was like, oh wow, Valentina is here. Okay, she was married to him, that's great. But also there was something about the way like that, there's a boardroom scene there with a couple of the agents and her and that kind of, and there was something about that just felt like if the character Valentino was at the side, like if it was just brought down a little. And that is why I feel like, okay, maybe we didn't necessarily need to have her here. She could have stayed in the background until.
Like I think,
I agree. Yeah.
I think there's a justification that like, oh, she's kind of playing it a little softer, so she can lure him into a false sense of security and have him tell everything he knows. But if that was the case, like the film doesn't do a pretty good job. That doesn't really do a great job of making that clear. If that was the case, so that's more of like a debatable reading than anything else.
Right.
Yeah. But that being said, I felt they could at least put Everett, like, all right, like they put effort into making Everett a part of the story with him helping out Shuri and Koye, during their acquisition, if you will, of Riri, right? So that worked. But after that, it was just like, all right, we don't know what to do with him. Let's arrest him, and then we do like a sort of a Fast and Furious 4 moment where he's in that prison van locked up, and we're coming to save him now, and it was like, all right, I really feeling that, right?
It's like. He has less to do in this than the first one, and even in the first one,
he didn't have that much.
He felt like the token white character that we have to include because otherwise we can't get them to see this movie. Like, but this one he has even less to do somehow.
First to begin with in these Black Panther movies to kind of poke fun at the reverse of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean a little bit. I get it.
A little bit.
Yeah, and last but not least, though, I won't lie, though, seeing Killmonger again, though, wow.
Whoa.
And it's the context of it too, though, the I forgot what you call it, that dream
Star Wars moment. That's what I thought of it.
Pretty much. It is. Technically, it is that, right? But and also points for Marvel Studios for their marketing of the film, right? And
I was genuinely surprised.
Flames, right? And they actually removed Killmonger out of the frame, so you're just seeing Shuri stand up there with all these flames around there, like, okay, what's going on? But they slap some music because like,
damn.
Okay, Rihanna new song Lift Me Up, right? That's how they do use it, right? But it's like, that's what really going on, right? But I mean, Michael B. Jordan came, crushed it. I like that, it is him more or less kind of giving Shuri a choice and whatnot. If again, just going back to structure, I wish this came in a little earlier, not too early, but a little early in the film, because this is near the end of the third act now, and this is when she finally becomes Black Panther, and is now when she finally gets her one fight in the film, right, against Namor. That's when she has to make that choice now. Like I felt like structurally it should have came a little earlier, right? But that being said, though, while I do have issues with the pacing of it in terms of the structure of the narrative and just all these subplots just going here, there, everywhere, the just the effort put into this though, and just the ambition, and just the mere fact that despite all the flaws that it has and whatnot, it is still a loving tribute and send off to the man, the myth, the legend. Chadwick Boseman, but I mean, Wakanda Forever delivers, man. This is one that I definitely will rewatch though, because I feel like if I watch that again, I'll appreciate it a lot more. It's just first time off, it's just all right. I liking this, but I just find structurally things just all over the place. But I have a feeling if I watch it again, I'll really appreciate more. And as you said, CC, I have a feeling I'll appreciate the quieter moments more than the.
Yeah, I was taken aback by the quiet moments because we made the mistake of seeing this in like a decently busy theater, and it made me realize the kind of blockbusters we make these days, because anytime, like, it's almost a movie that you'll probably get to appreciate more either at home or in a more empty theater, because whenever the movie got quieter, our audience got restless and kind of started fidgeting and talking amongst themselves, or like there were even there were even a couple people trying to take like pictures and shit. Like and this was anytime the movie started slowing down and get quieter. So definitely those quiet moments will be more appreciated without like people that are waiting for the next action scene, you know, like.
Right, yeah, I understand. So rating wise, at the moment, like a decent 4 to 5, man. Despite the issues that I have with the film, I still say that this is absolutely worth checking out. If you could see it on the biggest screen imaginable, please do. Or if you're just willing to wait till it comes out on Disney Plus, and I have a strong suspicion that they may come out, before Christmas, similar to like Encanto's dropped last year, where it dropped, literally Christmas Eve, and then people went nuts. Oh my God, Encanto's like the greatest thing ever. And I saw that shit like about a month ago. I was like telling people, yo, it's good, watch it. It's like, no, I don't want to go cinema. But I would say, yeah, Wakanda Forever is definitely worth checking out on the big screen, man. I am still excited for Avatar 2, though, and it's so funny that, this is going to be the second film involving blue people in the ocean, right? But whatever, right? But just in closing, in terms of Phase 4, I would say this is easily going to be the most memorable moment out of this Phase 4 phase, if you will, though. I'll take away She-Hulk because of just how much discourse and discussion was brought out of it online, because of what it is, right? But yeah, I would say that and Wakanda Forever, yeah, easily the two things I'm going to remember as far as Phase 4 output from the MCU. So yeah, Summer, your final thoughts and rating.
It basically lines up with a lot of what you guys are saying. What I wanted a little bit to expand on is Tenor Huerta as Namor, and I'm calling him Namor. I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought he elevated this character wonderfully. He brought Namor to life for me, and I was so worried because I wasn't exactly sure what to expect with all the changes that they were making of the character and his world. Yes. But I loved every aspect of it. I thought it was the only thing I would complain about is I wish we had a Namor television show prior to this movie that would have expanded a bit more in the way that I feel like we've spent so much time with Thanos, but that seems to be the only villain that we've spent time with. Whereas the others, we have to kind of take them as they are in the movie and then decide what we want to do with them. But for me, the way he portrayed the character is exactly what I was hoping for from a character like Namor. My absolute favorite fight sequence was him attacking Wakanda. I loved how that kind of hummingbird flight thing he would do to move really fast. It worked considering how
it really does have a hummingbird kind of movement.
Yeah,
which ties back into Mesoamerican culture so well.
Exactly.
Right. Everything in that for me, that aspect of it was very well thought out, and I appreciated that. The Black Panther costume, on the other hand, the special effects, it made the costume look small. It was too skinny. It had no muscle structure to it. And I couldn't get past how big the head was in comparison to the body. So it's like, listen, I can't believe this character could take on Namor and win. I couldn't get into that. And the final fight sequence on the ship, the editing was rough for me. I just couldn't see exactly what was happening too many times. So however, funny enough, the earlier fight sequences, like when they attacked the rig, I thought that played so well. It reminded me of Captain America Winter Soldier when that scene on the ship.
Yes, you're right.
So,
yeah.
It was funny how uneven that worked out. I was really hoping that that aspect of it they would have tightened up on by now. The entire movie being as morose and somber as it is, I that worked for me as well. I know, as CC, as you said, there are people that were fidgeting in the quiet moments. Those quiet moments are were the moments that pulled me in the most.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I know there are people out there that be, oh, this movie, the pacing was so uneven.
So
those
slow,
moments,
it's boring, yeah.
But we needed those moments considering what was happening and everything that happened in the real world. So the flaws of the movie is the same flaws I had with the first one. In that I love the story, I love the villain, but what is going on with your special effects, and why are you struggling so much with that? And Cece, as you pointed out, the only really big stumbling of that handling such two heavy narratives of the whole, these two smaller people, not smaller people, sorry, but these two nations being put against each other, and the colonizers are the ones benefiting when these things happen. And then you have grief. And it just felt, that is where I felt it would stumble as well, when they did try to tie it all together in the end, where Shuri's standing over him with that spear to his throat. And we get that whole montage of they are two very similar people. But it felt a bit like, oh, we have to explain to you what we were doing all this time.
Right.
So here's this scene that explains it all. We, trust your audience to understand. And I feel like Marvel really needs to, early Marvel, I felt like there was a sense of freedom that certain directors got. And I'm not seeing that in this later phase, and it scares me.
No, yeah, I'm starting.
No,
definitely.
Yeah, because if you trust them to allow, I know everything has to tie in together in some shape or form, but if you do that, the story itself suffers, and I saw that happening here. So with all the flaws and everything, guys, for me, it was a 7.5 to an 8 out of 10. I need to see this movie again.
Right.
I'm really struggling.
I think we all do.
Yeah, because one viewing is really not enough to sit down and really analyze, what did I like? What didn't I like? Does this really work? Or is it me just coming off a high of seeing the movie,
Right.
But yeah, guys, my score, I would stand right now at about 7.5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Until I see it again, and then I'll see where that lies.
Right. Tracy, final thoughts and rating, and then we'll close with CC. So, Tracy, go.
First of all, I want to thank October, November's superhero movies for bringing me. I want to say the joke about it is like hilarious things that I know from other things. So, Black Adam giving me the rock symbol when you need to summon him, and then Talokan. And then Talokan hit me with Hadoukens, with that whole hand gesture.
Yes, I thought I was the only one to pick up on that.
I was like, listen, I'm here for that. I think what you guys were saying pretty much, in a real sense, sums up some of what I feel. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know now what times to go and see it, so that I don't walk out of the cinema at 2:00 in the morning. But that is pretty cool for me. I enjoyed the film. I loved the albums. Where I stand on soundtracks. I feel like a NECA. I don't know. I really was expecting them to dive deeper into a NECA and Io's relationship. Funny enough, I really did.
Disney's so scared to pull that trigger.
I feel listen. China's already saying that they're not going to do it because of like that one kiss on the forehead. They're not going to. I was like, you know what, screw you. But I really was expecting to have more of them, and I do agree with you guys in terms of. I thought, yes, Shuri might have been the logical choice, but I thought they might have gone a different way and say, okay, Aneka is a warrior, or Nakia is a warrior, and therefore, but I could understand why Shuri becomes the Black Panther, not just in terms of lineage, it was the father, the brother, and now her, but just like even the conversations that she had with Namor, she would be the logical one to go back and go and fight against him, that kind of thing. There's a line that he says to her after he water bombs the throne room. I think he's like, "You are the queen now. Bury your dead, and prepare." And I guess there's something about that whole scene. Also, I must just throw out how Twitter and by extension me, we're kind of chuckling over the idea of he was 500 years old, she was 20 something. They could destroy the world.
They had the full chemistry. I have that is another of it. I would put that chemistry.
I was taken aback by their chemistry. I was genuinely like, oh, I didn't know we were doing this. This is
man give her a bracelet and give her clothes and it's like, here, what? Wear this.
It belonged to my mother. Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, we're
getting some.
That is a level. That is a level.
We're getting some fan.
That's new one as well with him and Namora. That thing he does with the Black Panther painting, the Aztec painting. Love it.
Yeah.
Because there's a behind the scenes shot. There's a behind the scenes shot there where you see like a hammock. So it's not just a room that he's there, but it's like that's where he rests, and that is where he's painting his. I was like, oh boy, okay, boy, we have things to do. Still a better love story than Twilight. I'm going to. I will say this, and then I will give my ratings and be silent. Here's the thing: WandaVision, Miss Marvel, Eternals. I still do not understand for the life of me why everybody is like. I watch Eternals up to recently, and I'm like, this is gold.
I watched it over again after Ricardo and I was like real iffy about it, and I appreciate it more the second time I see it. So there's hope people will watch it again and like it.
Yeah, no.
I do feel like it's one of those movies that you're gonna get 10 years down the road. You're gonna get a bunch of videos coming out on why Eternals is great. Why Eternals is great. You're gonna see that.
Why we didn't appreciate Eternals
in cinemas, So you have those three. What did I just? WandaVision, Miss Marvel, Eternals, and Wakanda Forever. I have less of a gripe with Phase 4. I feel like for me, and this is I actually did a tweet about it earlier. My thinking is Phase 1 to 3 was we didn't have time to do personal introspection. Phase 1 to 3 is there are missions on missions. It was Loki, it was Ultron for all that it was worth. It was Ultron, it was Thanos, it's Secretary Pierce and Hydra. It's missions upon missions upon missions. And then at the last mission, everything goes to hell. And now you have to sit down and have your own personal introspection of what's going on. Wanda's in a world where Vision doesn't exist. Sam is basically a veteran who comes back after fighting the greatest war and still can't get a loan. Stuff like that you have to deal with. So now you have this kind of, yes, grief, yes, pain, yes, personal growth, but deep introspection. And that for me was what Phase 4 was. And I have a memory of somebody, I think it was Feige himself, talking about it's the repercussions of what happens after the snap and coming back. That is basically Phase 4. So I have less of a gripe with it, but those 4 properties are my top tier Phase 4 type things. I don't know how I feel about Charlie's swiping and saying, you have an incursion, we have to go. I feel like that could have been introduced a little bit better, but doesn't.
Why nobody giving Moon Knight love?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Well, no,
Moon Knight is fantastic.
Moon Knight
is fantastic.
And there's a song that plays in Moon Knight, Say It, that I used to just walk around and just sing all over the time. So I'm here for that.
Every day I wake up, listen.
big tune. Yeah.
9
out of you know what? Yeah, that's where I live. A 9 out of 10. Not because, I feel like I want to give it a 10, but that's just not really. I go back and I think about it. But it is because I think about it. It is because, like I said earlier on, when I'm in my quiet moments, I'm standing up, I'm in the gym, I'm washing wares or something like that, and I think about the introduction of how Namor showed Shuri, what the kingdom of Talokan looks like.
Yeah.
And I can show you the world.
Yes. Listen. That is their Disney prince and princess, and nobody can tell me differently. So for me, it's a 9 out of 10. I kind of low-key waiting on some people to give me some of my freelance money so that I can go back and do my things. So I am going to go back and see it. I'm going to go back and see Wakanda Forever 2 times, 3 times. I know that's going to be a thing, and I maintain. If I was not if Mom wasn't okay, we're going to see, I want to see that movie in December, because
I like how you call it that movie.
Listen, I mean, we can't talk about it right here
Movie
right
from
now,
James
but
Cameron.
it's not that I have anyhow, that's another conversation. But if I did, that was
If we
the
start talking about
last.
Avatar 2, we're gonna be here all day.
If Wakanda Forever was my last cinema thing for 2020, what are we in 2022? I would not have a problem. Like I said, I know Disenchantment is coming out on the streaming service, and then there's Violent Night that'll come out Christmas Day on Netflix, and all the other stuff that I will see online. Glass Onion, all that kind of stuff, because I know the cinemas are not going to play Glass Onion, so I'm not even trying. I'm good. I'm good. The music, the introduction of Namor, and even Namora, Mabel's like her presence for the few moments that she was there, it was good. I don't know how I feel about, again, just that one kiss on the forehead. It reminded me of Rise of Skywalker, when like the last 10, it wasn't even a good 30
I do
seconds
mean.
with the kiss. I was like, come on, you could do better than that. You could set up this better. But that's a different story all entirely. And I am a big fan of the curated album as well as the Ludwig album. It's just brilliant. So well done them. 9 out of 10 for me.
So, CC, final thoughts unwritten on Wakanda Forever.
So I have two I have two thoughts on Wakanda Forever as an MCU film, as it's part of the MCU, and as a standalone film. I'm just going to start with standalone film because I kind of think those points well. I agree with all the positives that have been discussed today. I think, like, given how complicated and troubled this production was, the fact that they turned out a movie that was so complete and as complete and polished as it was, despite its big thematic tensions, is something of a masterwork and a testament to Ryan Coogler's absolute genius as a filmmaker. It succeeds on so many levels. I really like its continuing to reauthor Lost Race fantasy fiction to be about the Lost Races in general, and to be as ways to imagine cultures that were destroyed by colonialism if they had not been, like, as like cool little what ifs. It's really interesting, and I really think that Ryan Coogler pulls off a lot of the movie's big dramatic sequences really well, because that's always been one of his strong suits. So overall, no, my thoughts, I'm agreeing with all the positives of this film. It's still work. There's so much about it that I love specifically, and also stuff that's just works in general. And then overall, that rating is solid 9 out of 10. Maybe 8. That's for some of the weaker sequences, but honestly, like 9, because the stuff that doesn't work doesn't impact me as much as like the stuff that does work. My only thing is the way I feel about this movie as it is part of the MCU, and as someone who's been an MCU fan for a long time, which is, I am concerned that the best MCU films of this phase have been the most, like, the best MCU projects have been the most self-contained, because it feels, it's not, I'm a little concerned that the ones that don't quite feel like they're part of the MCU are the ones that feel the strongest. Like, I could be wrong. Like, I mean, maybe I'll finally get around to Spider-Man Far From Home and actually, like, or No Way Home, and like actually be like, oh, this is actually really good. Maybe I'll rewatch Black Widow and I'll like it better this time around. Still need to rewatch Love and Thunder at some point after that, how disappointing that was. But it's been kind of frustrating that some of the best MCU, and then even on MCU films that I did really like Eternals and Doctor Strange 2, both of those films, the weakest parts of them were the parts that connected to the rest of the MCU, and that I find also deeply frustrating, especially given the, like, some of the filmmakers that have been announced up and coming, or the fact that they've lost the Blade director. That's not a good sign.
Blade stuff kind of worrying,
Stuff is starting to get a little worrying. Like, stuff is getting a little worrying. I'm hoping that they remember that, like, letting their filmmakers do their thing is what's best, because it's starting to highlight how weak some of the other stuff is, and other potential complications down the road at this point. But because, like, this movie is really good, But like the thing about it that concerns me is that it's reminding me how much weaker some of the more connected stuff is, and how I saw a movie with fewer MCU connections, and my thought was, oh, I'm refreshed, which I was like, oh wait, that's not necessarily like, I shouldn't feel that way at not seeing this film be more connected. It reminds me of watching Eternals, where anytime the movie reminded us it was part of the MCU, I was like, oh, I'm a little like, for some reason I was a little disappointed. Like I'm starting, there are cracks, and I'm hoping that Marvel does something to like course correct or figure out something, because I want more Black Panther and less Thor: Love and Thunder is what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, just a quick counterpoint to that. Not really a response, a refutation or anything like that. But just I just feel like they could have connected the stuff better. I have no problem connected, but just when they show the connections, is the clumsiest, laziest connections.
They are.
And I was like, you could think this out a little better, right? And I don't know what happened. Again, COVID, right? COVID is the thing that just kind of hanging above the head. But I don't know. I just feel like you could have think out these ideas better.
Yeah.
In terms of connecting them. I don't mind you connect them. Just think them out a little better. Well,
I thought that COVID would mean that the films would be better because they would force them to spend longer in post, but it sounds that was like I thought, because
you learn unfortunately the weaknesses of the production, flow and nature and
like every Marvel movie I have seen, even the ones I liked, could have used another year in development.
Right.
Like whether it was like half that time shooting or half that time in like pre-production. Every Marvel project I've seen, except for maybe Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night and like some of the other ones, almost everything could have used a little longer to cook. And that's the fact that is becoming consistently noticeable is a problem.
Right.